evening, everyone, and welcome here to the Iowa Speedway as it plays host to race number 10 of the sixth season of the Dark Horse Racing Series presented by Troy Lee Designs. It is the fourth time that the Dark Horse Racing Series drivers have taken to this short track. The short track was run between seasons 3 through 5. We started out with it being a 150 lap event, 160 laps last season, but now 200 laps here tonight. Seth Cole alongside of Matthew Rodriguez. So, Matt, it's a bit of an endurance race for these drivers here this evening. How does that extra 40 to 50 laps play into tonight's finish?
Obviously, a lot of fuel strategy comes into play. Also, just make sure you take care of your tires. I think really only time will tell. With the sun going down and it coming almost nighttime, we're going to see a lot cooler temperatures. I wouldn't be surprised to see these cars pick up the pace, but also maybe get a little bit more on the free side.
Obviously, qualifying is currently underway. One thing that I was kind of wondering about coming in tonight, with it being considered a short track, would track position be important? But if you look back at the last three races that we've had here, Rick Ravon, he's won this race from the pole. That was last season. He's also won from as far back as 11th, and Charles Teed, who won the inaugural race here back in season 3, won it from the 5th position. So does track position really matter here tonight?
Realistically, I always think at almost every short track position matters. I'd rather be up at the front trying to fight those guys in that dirty air rather than being all the way back in the pack. And hey, as soon as you get by one guy, you got one more right in front of you.
Now, we've obviously been following a lot of different storylines here, pretty much into the home stretch of the season, getting closer to that Indianapolis 500 race weekend where we'll eventually crown a champion. Got Iowa tonight, Gateway on the horizon, Motegi also ready to play its part, but we've been obviously watching the battle of Craig Forsyth versus Rick Ravon. They keep swapping that points lead back and forth. It's still close between those two, 3-point separation with Forsyth at the top of the point standings, but we've also been kind of looking outside of those top two at maybe a third or fourth driver to enter into the vicinity. Jeff Heisong and Luis Gonzalez Nunez have been those two drivers. Now, Heisong's been really good at the bigger mile and a half, 2-mile racetracks. Nunez, though, seems like the shorter, low banking racetracks have been his bread and butter. For those two drivers, particularly here tonight, what do they need to do to be able to keep themselves in contention with only a handful of races left till we end up getting to that season finale?
But right now, I think you have to kind of take at least a little bit of evaluation of your landscape. Right now, you got Craig Forsyth. He is the leader here in points. Rick Ravon is not here tonight because he was making that scheduled kind of not appearance where he was in the process of moving and won't be available. So what you really need to do tonight is just get a good finish. Don't wreck out. We've got to get some points. But also, most importantly, try, if at all possible, finish ahead or near Craig Forsyth, just as a way to slowly claw back points where, hey, maybe you won't gain a huge amount of points on Craig Forsyth, but at least you can gain on Rick Ravon. And then same thing, make sure you monitor your competition. Like I said, if I'm racing against some guy, maybe Charles Teed, if I'm racing against Gary Corley, maybe I won't run him as hard as I'd run Jeff Heisong, maybe as I'd run Luis Gonzalez Nunez, as I was running Craig Forsyth. Those kind of things are kind of red flags to me of just make sure you're not racing the wrong guy.
We're going to show you here the starting lineup for this evening. It'll show you the drivers that elected to take time. Eric Peterson going to start on the pole position alongside of last week's winner Eric Schaus. There's Nunez on the inside of row number 2 alongside of former winner here at Iowa Charles Teed. And there's Forsyth in that 5th position. You talked about finishing in the same zip code as that 27 car. Craig Forsyth has had 2 starts in the 3 races run here at Iowa. Both finishes inside of the podium, including a runner-up finish last year. So it'll be interesting to see if he's going to be able to maybe get that one position better, as he has not taken a checkered flag here at Iowa Speedway under the Dark Horse Racing Series banner. The other driver, Jeff Heisong, going to be starting this race back in the 8th position. We ended up seeing in the last 2 races here at Iowa, the caution only flew a total of 1 time. Last year went completely caution-free. We'll see if we're going to see a couple more yellow flags here tonight with 14 drivers in the field, or will it all come down to pit strategy maybe here, especially with the fact, as stated earlier on, it's a more elongated distance here than these drivers have been in the past. with this also being a short track, this is a 0.875 mile racetrack. We are going to have 2 pacing laps here. You see the iRacing pace car staying out for a second time. So the
You
way the
got
point standings,
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say the point standings coming into tonight. It's Craig Forsyth 3 points over Rick Rabon, who, as Matt already pointed out, not in the field this evening. 78 points back is Jeff Highsong, and 101 points back is Luis Gonzalez Nunez. Pole sitter Eric Peterson really needs a miracle with only 4 races left. He's 131 points back, but who knows? Stranger things have happened. And again, we got told last week there are no drop weeks as we had seen in past seasons. So, with that being said, Rayvon going to be losing out on a lot of points here tonight, and a big opportunity for drivers, maybe 3rd, 4th, 5th on back to be able to close up that gap potentially, but only time will tell.
And realistically, looking at Eric Peterson's season, his season tells a tale of tragedies. Hasn't qualified worse than 5th, but man, being able to finish inside the top 5 has definitely been a struggle this year. Only 2 finishes inside the top 5 out of these 10 races.
175 miles await these drivers here tonight, and Peterson gets us underway at Iowa. Going to have the early advantage into turn 1. The battle's going to be for second. Charles Teed wasting no time trying to get by last week's winner, Eric Schaus, but Schaus got a good exit off of 2.
So there's a bump in that turn 1 that just made him extremely unsettled, kind of sent him up the track a little bit.
Schaus going to try and jump up there to the outside of Eric Peterson, maybe for the race lead, as look at how fast these drivers are carrying that speed into 1 and 2. This is a short track, but it is a high-speed short track with these Indy cars as Forsyth to the inside of Charles Teed. Luis Gonzalez Nunez there as well. And I gotta wonder with just how fast these drivers are going, there's little to no reaction time, right, if contact takes place in front of you?
That's the thing where these drivers are going about a minimum speed of about 188, 190. Some are going up near about 196, 197, where it makes reaction time, and obviously such close quarters on the track, it just a fraction of a second could take you out.
We talked last week with Eric Schaus, who went coast-to-coast pole to win at Homestead, Miami. He says, I know I'm out of the championship hunt. I'm just out here hunting checkered flags, and he's going to make a nice slick move there to the inside of Eric Peterson to take the lead. As soon as I say that, crossover, Peterson going to go back to the point.
If I could pick out a guy who just doesn't look 100% settled, it has to be AJ Hobson. Been dropping since the start of the green flag, and he just has not looked comfortable.
I think I ended up seeing him get way out of shape last time out of turn 4. Almost went down towards that yellow line towards the apron, which much like we've seen here in the past, the apron is not able to be utilized. They were only able to use it during qualifying. You have to keep your car up above that yellow line on this front straightaway.
I will say that Charles Teed has just come alive in these past few weeks, really being up here in the top 5 and just battling. Again, that's never been his real issue. His real issue has been finishing out races and making sure there's no mistakes.
What's got to be the confidence level for Charles Teed riding that momentum that you spoke of coming into a track that he knows in the past he's taken a checkered flag at?
Really, it's just supreme confidence because the car hasn't changed. The track does change with different conditions. The setup does change, but your knowledge of this track, once you do 200 laps around here, you've got a pretty well knowledge of it. And even if you come here 6 months later, you still have this track down. That's it. It doesn't take long to get into your rhythm, and as long as you got that rhythm, no one can really stop you.
Riding on board with Charles Titus, he's taken a good front row seat of this battle between Eric Peterson and Eric Schaus for the top spot. Luis Gonzalez Nunez there, now to the inside of Craig Forsyth, and you'll notice that with our onboard gear ratio there, 5th gear, I don't think you're going to see anybody shift up to 6th gear here tonight. The short straightaways, I don't really think draft's going to really play that much a factor as far as fuel savings. So I don't think anybody's really going to be shifting up to that high gear tonight.
I keep seeing so many guys get all the way down near that yellow line, but man, it does not look comfortable. Eric Schaus has been one of those guys who I really just continue to see push it and slide up in front of that guy. I don't know how long it's going to work for.
How much are tires going to come into play? I mean, we're seeing a lot of crossovers, not necessarily slide jobs, but to your point, sliding up in front of the driver you pass. So that's got to be wearing those Firestones down. Is tire wear going to be a factor here? Does that maybe come into play in green flag pit stops of trying to pit a lap or two earlier than your rest of your competition to maybe leapfrog them?
Realistically, it all really depends about the compound that Virtual Firestone brought to this track. Now, historically, we've had pretty much a lot harder right front tires, and they've been able to take up to this abuse. Though of it being such a short track with such high speeds, it's kind of bringing a interesting conundrum in where I think some of these drivers are kind of burning up this right front, and we're going to see probably if it's really going to be a factor around lap 30, lap 40, to see how much these drivers are kind of falling off, see how much their times fall off, and see if anyone has issues trying to dive down to the bottom of the track.
We're only 15 laps into this race, and already these race leaders are running almost 2.5 tenths slower than what they ran in the opening stages. They began with 16.6 lap times, a couple in the high 16.5s. They're now all basically running in the mid 16.8s. So to your point, definitely starting to feel maybe that aero tightness, that tire heat building up in the right front.
And realistically, the my real indicator is not really times, it's how the driver looks and feels. If the driver is fighting his car constantly, he is not happy with that car. He is just trying to make it through and try to progress the position. But if you have a driver who's kind of easing in and out of corners, looks like they can pass with ease, not even if they're doing it that fast, that's a driver who's very comfortable with the car, very comfortable with the tires they have on it, and honestly is kind of a real threat for later in this race.
This is the shortest racetrack distance-wise that these drivers will be on all season long. So if it does come down to green flag pit stops, we say it every single week. Doesn't matter if it's a shorter track, a 2-mile racetrack, a mile and a half. Execution on pit road is key. Maybe no more so than here tonight, because you make a mistake, you're going to lose a lot of time, a lot of track position. It's almost basically guaranteed that if you come to pit lane and some others stay out, you're going to lose at least 1 lap, maybe even 2, depending on where you are in the field when you make that green flag pit stop. So if you make a mistake, it's going to be very difficult to mount a rebound.
I'm starting to believe that the tires may have gotten just a little bit worn here because I'm seeing everyone starting to single file out. I don't believe this is all really for fuel mileage. I think really a lot of it's just we can't always shove it down to the bottom of that track and just churn up these tires.
We saw a lot of drivers up here at the front kind of swapping for positions. Nunez and Forsyth, they were mixing it up for third. Of course, Schaus and Peterson were swapping back and forth for the lead. Looks like now we've started to kind of settle down a little bit here. Some battling outside the top 5 between Corley and Hobson. But really with all that swapping of position, nobody has really made a charge forward from their starting spot. The driver so far that's gained the most spots since the start is Alec Coates, our runner-up finisher from the season opener at Pocono. Started 13th up to 10th plus 3. Everybody else is basically running where they started for the most part.
Yeah, and it's kind of just gotten them this nice little train. I think some of the drivers are still kind of in that process of feeling out their cars, trying to figure out what they can do. But obviously some of these drivers are really going on their first long run of the race. So this is really their first chance to feel their car on old tires and how it reacts in the draft.
One driver we certainly knew we were going to have to keep our eyes on here tonight, making a pass or trying to make the pass there for second place, Luis Gonzalez Nunez. He has victories this season at New Hampshire and the Milwaukee Mile. Shorter circuits, not a whole lot of banking. As man, Charles T, did he get the wall there off of turn 4? He's a little slow there going into turn 1. I think he either got really tight and almost brushed the wall, or he may have actually made contact. Yeah, he's lost a ton of momentum here even through 1 and 2, trying to feel out just what the damage might be, and he nearly just got run over by Thaddeus McMurray in the 37.
Yeah, and Charles T said over the radio he is broken. And honestly, looking at that car, I can see the right front suspension is pushed in just a little bit. Plus with the side pod, that little aero side device, that is extremely bent in, so it's not going to be feeling too great in the corners.
Everybody trying to make their way around him safely. McMurray finally does. Jeff Highsong. There's a new driver in the field here tonight. The driver of the number 69711 machine. That's Glenn Lazan. Right now running in the 10th position in his debut. Always cool to see new blood in a series and see how they stack up against names that we see week after week. Let's see if we've got the opportunity here with no caution at this point in time. Let's even go back and real quickly see what happened to Charles T. This was definitely off of turn 4. I don't think there was any contact between him and Luis Gonzalez Nunez, but certainly both were in the same vicinity. Watch right here. T makes the slide move on Nunez and just carries way too much speed. It's like that car never turned off of 4.
And I think that's really where tire wear is going to start coming to place, where it just didn't grip. And it didn't turn like he thought it was going to. And that's what we're probably going to see later in this race. So some of these drivers just having a little bit too much faith in their tires, and they just weren't gripping like they were when they're brand new.
And again, let's not forget, that's a former winner here at Iowa that had that mistake. So if Charles Teed, a driver who ended up leading the last 27 laps of this event back in Season 3, has a mistake like that, nobody in the field is safe right now.
Yeah, I'm realistically looking at it. This is kind of what's plagued Charles Teed all season. Is just having a really hot start, but kind of having that one mistake. But I'm hoping that he has that chance to battle on back and hopefully get rally back for a good finish.
I'm not certain. I'm going to have you kind of confirm this, but is there damage on the right side of the rear wing of Luis Gonzalez Nunez? Because he was slow and lost a couple of spots. I think he's gotten the wall.
Yeah, I'm noticing that side pod is kind of the same damage that Charles Teed has. Side pod aero device, but this time he actually looks like he hit the rear wing. And one of the end plates on the rear wing is kind of angled sideways, so that's definitely going to be kind of messing with how you're feeling that car.
Let's go back, see if we can find out where he might have made contact.
Yeah, it looks
Might
like the
have been
same
right
place
around
Charles
here.
Teed. Yeah, same place Charles Teed did, lap 32. It's kind of sent it just a little bit too into the corner, trying to get a good exit, and just barely clipped the wall of the back end. Almost took out Gary Corley.
Yeah, that was the 7 right there that he almost ended up going across the nose of. Nice job there, being able to keep it from damaging more cars, but now Nunez dropping towards the back as he has fallen to the 9th position. Charles Teed is all the way back in the 14th spot, and he's actually lost a lap. Eric Peterson got around him not too long ago. So 2 drivers right there that were looking like they could be contenders up inside of the top 5, even up inside of the podium, now kind of limping their race cars around here with still over 160 laps to go.
Honestly, if I was Charles Teed right now, I'd just bring it in and lose the laps. But honestly, just getting that side pod fixed, that would help you so much. Where he's tracking through these corners about 160, 165, when everyone else is going about 180, 190. I mean, if he's not laps down by, next 10 laps, I'm kind of worried.
Nunez has now dropped all the way back to 13th, last car on the lead lap, and as he continues to lose ground to Jason Ham for that 12th spot, he's also in turn being reeled in by race leader Eric Peterson, only running about 3.5, 4 seconds ahead of the 36. I think in just a few moments when we have that pan shot down the back straightaway, we're probably going to see Luis Gonzalez Nunez heading into turn 3 as Peterson comes off of turn 2, and there you saw him right there. So Nunez now in danger of going a lap down. 2 heavy hitters here in the early going, taking some heavy hits courtesy of this short track.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of seeing, looks like Eric Peterson and Eric Schaus really just kind of pulled away from the rest of the field. Gary Corley's just kind of hanging in there. AJ Hobson, I could tell because I saw him kind of wiggle out of turn 2. He just does not seem comfortable with that car fully, as it looks like Luis Gonzalez Nunez coming to pit road this time.
We're watching a good battle there between Morales and Glenn Lazan. But Lazan having to back out of that. And one thing that I've noticed with the Nunez incident and just moments ago there with that battle between the 10 and the 69, it kind of seems like if you can disturb the air in front of the car that's trying to pass you, that just kind of seems to exemplify that tight position off of turn 4, and the car does not want to turn because we ended up seeing Lazan have to really bail out of the throttle off of turn 2 to avoid getting the outside safer barrier once he had lost out on that battle for the 9th position.
And realistically, the thought starts to occur in your mind where you got to think maybe that chance, and you see Charles Teed go another lap down, but maybe that chance of staying out maybe a lap and maybe taking those older tires instead of coming in earlier to take a pit stop. I'm kind of wondering if that may affect drivers' choices later in the race, because hey, those 1 lap fresher tires can mean all the difference.
Uh-oh, do we have another of our top contenders in trouble? I just noticed Craig Forsyth a little slow on the track. He just lost a spot to Thaddeus McMurray, and now Joseph Morales makes the pass around him.
Looks like he's bent the side pod a little bit. Doesn't look exactly like that shark fin on the right side. Well, yeah, it looks like the shark fin got bent too. So it looks like Craig Forsyth's kind of in the same boat here where he's falling back.
So with the contact that these drivers are making, how is it affecting them in terms of speed? Are they losing power because of the contact, or is it the aero downforce that's slowing them down now that they've lost?
So think it like side force in a way. How we talk about stock cars, think about side force. So we're trying to pack air on that right side, trying to get it to kind of drive through the corner and help it drive. What this is doing is it's taking that ability to generate side force off of the car. So if you're driving in the corner, yes, the left side is cutting through the air, but that right side almost acts like a parachute, kind of dragging them up the track and making them slower. So they can't, basically, we're not having enough downforce to allow them to get through that corner.
It's Eric Peterson. Oh, he's coming to pit road. This will be a regularly scheduled green flag pit stop at lap 50. So this says to me that it's going to be at least probably a 3-stop race for these drivers. And we got a number of our other front runners coming down behind him. Gary Corley, AJ Hobson, Schaus, last week's winner, going to stay out. And now he's to pit road this lap in the 72. So pretty much 50 lap spurts it looks like here for these drivers. Jeff Hysong, Thaz McMurray, Joseph Morales, all on pit road. How about that? The debuting Glenn Lazan going to stay out and lead himself a lap.
That's the thing. Even if you are not in the top contenders of this race, at least stay out, lead yourself a lap, just make yourself feel better at the end of the day. And again, never know. Maybe you can get lucky with one of these pit strategies, or hey, you stay out a lap, a caution comes out, kind of cycles you out almost to the leader.
Talk about you cannot make mistakes. Pit road speed, 45 miles per hour. Got to get that thing woed down, because if you end up getting a speeding penalty, you have to come down and serve it. That is a chunk of laps that you're going to lose, as here's an exchange for the lead. Eric Peterson shoved it down.
Morales spun off a pit road.
No caution. We remain green as it was down away from the racing surface. He gets it righted, continues on, and Peterson will cycle out to the top position. He was up to speed, caught up to Eric Schaus, and he had a lot of faith in his car because he drove it right down to the inside of Eric Schaus. Was very lucky that it stuck with those fresh tires, but as soon as that happened, Eric Schaus says, all right, and we're back to the crossover game between these two.
But you know what I kind of viewed out of that is that Schaus had about maybe a second or two gap to Eric Peterson before that pit stop. And realistically, all he did was just gang it all back. So it really looks to me like Eric Peterson taking a little bit more conservatively on the pit road than Eric Schaus is. And that's kind of a little bit of a highlight in my mind where, yes, you can't always be as aggressive as you may want to on pit road just to limit mistakes. And of course, knowing Eric Peterson's bad luck streak, I'd be afraid of him speeding or spinning on the pit road. But just seeing how successful Eric Schaus gets on the pit road, I'd either be trying to kind of hold him up a little bit, or at least try to take it a little bit more aggressively on the pit road, just to see if I can still maintain that gap on new tires.
Got some traffic here for the race leaders to deal with. That was Gary Corley in the 7. Jason Hand, the 00, just up ahead, as it's still nose to tail here between the top two for this race lead. And applaud you, Matt, for the strategy call that you would have done as far as advising Charles T to come to pit lane when he had hit the wall, because Luis Gonzalez Nunez did that. He has now cycled back on the lead lap with all the rest of the drivers pitting. So if a caution came out, he would still be on the lead lap and not have to utilize the lucky dog. Charles T elected to come down pit road when all the leaders did, losing all that time with the damaged race car. He is now 2 laps down.
Realistically, there's good news and bad news about that strategy. Good news, you're on the lead lap, and you got a fixed car. Great. Bad news is you're off strategy with the leaders, and you're going to have to pit most likely at an inopportune time and have to go back those laps down. Now, obviously, there's a way you can get bailed out of that strategy is by a caution or, misfortune. Or if that strategy that you just put yourself on suddenly becomes advantageous where you realize, it looks like if I actually pit on this strategy, I will end up leapfrogging the leaders. So if I try to short pit, this will happen. So again, it kind of works in a multifaceted strategy where, hey, if you're not always the fastest on the track, maybe you can outthink the guys who are.
Gary Corley in the 7 back on pit road. This is an unscheduled stop for him. Another piece of bad news, though, for Luis Gonzalez Nunez, Charles Teed, and Craig Forsyth is they've now used their faster pair. So if they run into trouble with still way more than half of this race left to go, they do not have that mulligan to be able to fall back on. As we're following this great battle for the 4th position, Jeff Hysong and Alec Coates. Coates picked up 9 spots since the start of this race, now into that 4th position. And really gained a ton of that track position as well during that round of green flag pit stops. Not sure exactly how he gained it, whether he may have been a little bit more aggressive on pit road entry, maybe was able to get up to speed on pit road exit, but he was around 7th or 8th when the green flag pit stops began, and now he's up inside of the top 5.
That's a big thing. I mean, looking at this, you can underestimate pit stops so easily here just because, I mean, you think, oh, it's just getting on pit road, changing tires, and getting off it. It's not that simple. You can gain seconds on entry. You can gain seconds on exit if you really push it, or maybe you shift into a higher gear, just trying to get the car to go faster on exit. All these little tricks can equate to just seconds on the track where, hey, I'd rather get some guy on pit road than try to brace him on track where it's just easier and there's no reason to.
This is the battle for 7th. A couple of drivers that, when they came to pit road, had to take on their faster pair. Both have been up into the wall at some point in this race. Forsyth in the 27, Nunez in the 14. Now, Forsyth, he'll be able to go another 35 laps or so before he eventually has to come to pit lane. With Nunez pitting when he did, he is off sequence. That means he'll be on pit road in the next 25 laps or so. Nunez going about a groove higher. You can see when they go through the corner, the turns separated by those hash marks. Forsyth goes down between the first set of hash marks. Nunez runs in between the second half of hash marks. Is he trying to maybe find some corner exit speed for these straightaways, or is it just more a case of trying to get clean air to the nose so he doesn't get tight off the corner again and get up into the wall?
I think it's really a big thing of just trying to set yourself up for the corner. Obviously, you want to take as much room as possible, kind of arc down as much as you can, but also you want to get clean air to your wing, just because as soon as you get dirty air on that wing, it just takes all the downforce away and you just start kind of fighting for that grip.
Came back from the Craig Forsyth machine to Luis Gonzalez Nunez. Move back up towards the front. Eric Peterson now in control of the race lead. He's got about almost half a second, a little less than half a second, back to Eric Schaus. They've now been able to get themselves pretty well clear of the slower traffic or drivers that were on the tail end of the lead lap. You see the 00 of Jason Hand holding court with them, and of course Jason hoping that a caution comes out as the first car one lap down. He would be in the free pass position, but mention the fact last year we went the entirety of the race, 160 laps, caution-free. We've had a couple of moments here where we nearly saw the first caution fly tonight, but I kind of get the feeling that when you entered into this race and the green flag flew, at that point in time, you're basically planning strategies of this 200 laps going clean and green.
I'm just kind of looking out here, just trying to get a good lay of the landscape. Obviously, Eric Peterson and Eric Schaus kind of classed the field. They got their own strategy. AJ Hobson, he has been a trooper. He has been just hanging in there, doing the best he can. Alec Coates, he has also been kind of hanging in there. It doesn't really seem to have race running pace, but just kind of hanging around. And my man, Jeff Heisong, he has just come alive in the last few weeks and just slowly trying to get best positions he can.
There is AJ Hobson in the 63.
It's just surprising how much of a title contender Jeff Heisong has come in these past few weeks.
You know, Eric Peterson coming into tonight, his best finish at Iowa, 5th place, and that was last year. Outside of that, he didn't have a top 10 prior to last season here at this racetrack. So definitely much improved position right now, and he has been out in front for a good portion of this race. He swapped the lead back and forth with Eric Schaus at the initial start of this race, as well as after the first round of green flag pit stops, but it kind of seems like on the longer run, the further we get into one of these stints, that's when the 36 seems to be his best and begins to gap the 72.
Yeah, realistically, I think Eric Peterson's a little bit light on tires, at least on opening of the run. I see Eric Schaus do those aggressive dives and really tries to slide it up. And I think that's part of what makes him so really so great on these opening runs, but really what causes him to fall back so far. I think if we get a short run at the end of the race on new tires, Eric Peterson will be in trouble, but Eric Schaus definitely has that short run game done.
It has been the Eric and Eric show since the drop of the green flag. They started first and second. They run first and second. Jeff Heisong in the 18, starting to close in on Alec Coates for that 4th position. And yeah, definitely has been kind of one of those, and pun intended, dark horses that have crept his way up into potentially the championship battle down this home stretch. The problem right now for Jeff Heisung is while he's having a great run up inside of the top five, Craig Forsyth is currently running in 7th. Luis Gonzalez Nunez, granted, he's going to have to come to pit road in about the next 10 laps or so, but he's running in 8th. So while he's going to gain points on both those drivers with where he's running right now, it's not a whole lot of points. It's kind of a drop in the bucket. He needs big chunks here in these next few races.
And realistically, that's the big thing where I think right now Jeff Heisung is doing the best that he can. And what I mean is he's doing the best he can is he's just trying to put himself in a good position. Where right now, I mean, look at the lay of the landscape. Rick Raybon isn't here. It's one of your title contenders you're already gaining points on. Greg Forsyth's behind you. He's exactly 1-2 positions behind you in this track. So that's already good. You're already gaining ground on him. Realistically, you're ahead of all your ever championship contenders. I think you're doing the best that you possibly can, and you're trying to set yourself up for that double points race at the end of the season. Right now, if I'm Jeff Heisung, the possibility of me catching these guys about that double points race, very slim, unless I really go on a tear. But what I'm trying to do is set myself up for that pretty much the Indianapolis 500, and try to figure out how exactly I'm going to get myself in this situation where I have to finish in this position ahead of these guys, and I can try and win this championship. Right? Just to try to steal it out from under their noses.
Glenn Lazan going a second lap down. There's Nunez. This is a scheduled stop as he's off sequence with everybody. That's going to drop him off the lead lap once again. And I love that point that you brought up there, too, in the case of Jeff Heisung. Basically, run his race, because we have seen so many times drivers that are just on the outside or maybe need to throw a Hail Mary, they overstep the boundaries of what they know they can do, and that's when the mistakes happen and you take yourself out of the running. Just basically figure out where your parameters are. Stay within those parameters and let the chaos happen around you. If it's meant to be, it'll happen, but the person that can beat you up and take yourself out of the title hunt, more oftentimes than not, is yourself.
And that's what really Jeff Heisung is doing so well right now, is he's not trying to push for positions he can't get. He's not trying to overrun the car, just trying to grasp at straws to get as many points. I mean, realistically, look in his mirror. He's got Thaddeus McMurray and he's got Craig Forsyth behind him. He knows that they're there. But instead of trying to put his strategy at risk and try to overrun himself, he's running his own pace. He's running pretty much his own line. He's just trying to catch up. And even if Craig Forsyth passes you, that's fine. He's not the main goal of today. The main goal is to make sure you continue to gain ground on Rick Raybon, and then also you gain ground on Craig Forsyth if it's possible.
So what about Craig Forsyth? We've already seen him get up into the wall. He's had to use his faster pair right now in the 7th position. What is his strategy now, knowing he doesn't have that mulligan to fall back on? Is this kind of ride and see what happens? Don't force the issue. Don't get too aggressive, knowing that he's going to gap Rick Raybon in the point standings after tonight, heading into another difficult track next week in Gateway?
In my opinion, it would be the easiest thing just to take it down a notch, just kind of ride around. Hey, I'm in the top 5, 6, 7. It's not that big of a deal. I just need to make sure I don't wreck the car again. But it's hard to tell a racer you need to go slower. So realistically what's happening here is Rick Raybon is just, my apologies, Craig Forsyth is really just trying to dig deep, kind of get past Thaddeus McMurray, get up to Jeff Heisung, past Jeff Heisung. Realistically, and Craig Forsyth said the best possible outcome for tonight would be a race win because Rick Raybon is not here to defend. And realistically, it's just pure points game. However, Forsyth knows that he has to finish well. He at least needs to have a finish, and preferably inside the top 5 to make sure he continues that point game.
A lot of stuff happening here on this previous lap. Saw the 00 of Jason Hands slow off the pace on the apron on the front straightaway. And third place running AJ Hobson did get up and brush the wall. Doesn't look like any visible damage, not nearly to the extent of what we've seen from other drivers like Teed, Forsyth, and Nunez who got up there. Oh, little contact there. Hobson maybe not all that thrilled with the 312 of Joe McAdory.
That's the thing where, as a lap car, and as a lead lap car to a lap car, you want the ability to kind of be able to choose your own lane, kind of drive by at your own pace, not have to worry about that. But when you kind of get to that ability of a lap car, hey, your job is to hold your line. You know he's faster. it's really up to the car behind to make that safe passage by. So,
With this traffic, you got Joe McAdory and Morales, Joseph Morales. They are battling right now for the 8th position, and right behind them, you've got the battle for 4th. Alec Coates and Jeff Hysong. Also, with 4 races left on the season, including that double points race, the finale at Indianapolis, did we just go from a 4-horse race to a 3-horse race? Luis Gonzalez Nunez has brought it to the garage area. Will finish 14th place here tonight. He was triple digits out of the points lead coming into this evening's race, 101 points back. Did this DNF effectively take him out of battling for that championship trophy?
I don't think it's really taking him out, but it's going to be hard from this point onward. Realistically, he's going to need to show some impressive, really record-breaking pace over the next 3 races. And it's going to be a lot more difficult because, I mean, we have an off week. We have Trinberg Motegi, which really isn't his preferred track. I mean, also, you need to really go into Indianapolis having good circumstances on your side, being able to kind of get max points day by having all of your championship competitors somehow get caught in this giant wreck that takes them out of it. So, I don't know.
We've eclipsed lap 100 and entered into the second half of this race, and that means the second round of green flag pit stops.
He hit the wall. Hit the wall and exit. I think iRacing giveth, iRacing taketh. He had split second left front damage. I don't see it there anymore, so,
Well, it's certainly going to slow him down on this outlap as Eric Schaus was all over Eric Peterson after the first cycle green flag pit stop, so we'll see if this might end up cycling the 72 out to the race leader. If the 36 will be able to hang on to it. Here's Schaus leaving pit road. We're looking for Peterson. I don't even see him. They're going, oh, and now Schaus spins it! Schaus just spun it on exit, and he got a lot of damage. The front wing is gone. Now Morales behind him spins it into the inside wall.
Oil on the track. Realistically, that is what trying to make up time on exit does. And these Indy cars are so deceptive about how you get on throttle. And honestly, all it takes is just a little goose of the throttle and back end comes right on around.
Well, I remember that there was a race we broadcast. I'm trying to remember which track it was at. I think it was a mile and a half. Might have been Kansas, but I'm not 100% certain. I remember there was a driver that was coming to pit lane, and he put in the pit revver and ended up spinning out. Is it possible switching from that to first, second gear that's where the wheel spin happens on the exit of pit road for these drivers?
I think it's just a little bit of a combination of cold tires, a lot of horsepower, and just trying to get the best exit possible.
Well, we've got Jason Hand. He came to pit road a few laps ago, and he's actually gone back to the garage area. Morales down pit lane. He's going to take on a faster pair. Eric Schaus has also come to pit road and replaced that front wing. A faster pair in the hole, and he is 2 laps down. And to your point, yeah, Teed going to pass him for the 9th position on the racetrack. So Peterson dodging a bit of a bullet there when he had his spin off of pit lane, but he continues to lead. Hobson now to second, Coates to third, and Craig Forsyth picked up a few spots there on that pit stop from 6th or 7th, I think it was. I think he was actually 7th, and now he's up to 4th with Hysong completing the top 5.
So obviously now this kind of resets a little bit. So let's kind of go over this. So Eric Peterson's now in this kind of nicer position where he doesn't have to push as hard. You don't have someone breathing down your neck. But AJ Hobson is still looming there in the background, and he is still within reasonable striking distance if you were to take it too easy. So I'd be kind of focusing on that one in my back of the head. Now, one of the big things I also want to kind of point out is Eric Peterson, he had a pit road exit accident on there too. He really just got lucky on exit where he hit the wall and a damage snapped back to how the car was supposed to be. So really, I'd be kind of counting my blessings with that, but he really needs to focus on just hitting his marks right now, making the cleanest laps possible, no mistakes. Realistically, no mistakes will win you this race. Now, looking behind AJ Hobson, he needs to get a little risky. I'd say you're not really in the points for this. I think it's time that you get a little bit of dangerous. How about we kind of start pushing the envelope? The same thing for Alec Coates. We kind of need to start pushing the envelope here, and Craig Forsyth is coming.
Forsyth right now running some of the fastest laps on the racetrack. Race leader Eric Peterson ran 16.8, high 16.8, and Forsyth was the only driver inside of the top 5 that clocked in at a 16.7. So he is starting to work his way up here closer to that podium as Peterson is continuing to deal with traffic. That's Joe McAdory in the 312 off of turn 4. Joseph Morales in the 60 right behind. Peterson going to make that pass. So we can't visibly see it, but if there is even the slightest little bit of damage there on that 36, does that mean that you would probably burn that faster pair on this final upcoming pit stop?
Honestly, if it really came down to if there's any damage on the car, I think I would just burn the faster pair and just take the risk, because right now I am the leader of the race. Right now we have been going relatively caution-free. I don't anticipate getting into a caution or being around the caution. And right now, Eric Peterson's really in that state of he needs to have this good finish where if he wants any shot at the championship, which is at this point a very long shot, if you want any point at or any chance at it, you need to win this race. And even if I just want it for momentum's sake of having this, I'd say, interesting of a season, I'd want to win out of it just to kind of drive home. But hey, at least we accomplished something this season.
Taking you through the top 5 here as they run. There are bonus points that are handed out in this series. Lap led, most laps led, no incidents during the race. And also there's actually bonus points that are handed out for fastest lap of the race. Right now, that would belong to Charles T. The issues he's had here tonight, he still would be in line for bonus points, clocking in at a 16.538. Lap as we go back here to the 37 of Thaddeus McMurray, who's had a pretty quiet night, but that's not necessarily a bad thing when it comes to short track racing, because that means that you've been able to keep your car in one piece, keep it on the racetrack. And McMurray, I'll have to check back, but I'm not certain if he's had a top 5 yet here in his Dark Horse Racing Series career. He's only about 3 seconds away from Jeff Hysong, and we've still got another round of green flag pit stops coming up, around 50 laps to go, so still possible.
I'm just kind of sitting here and I'm just thinking about who's currently running up here, who's currently in the best really spots possible. I think Jeff Hysong, he's kind of just lucked out here where it's not any part of really luck that came into it, just being consistent and not hitting anything, that he's kind of gotten into this top 5 position where it doesn't look like he's been the fastest car on track, doesn't look like he's been really the car that make these amazing passes, but he's been one of the most consistent cars, and that's really what counts when it comes to a lot of his. I mean, look at how many cars we have laps down. Look at how many. I mean, Charles Teed, Eric Schaus, those are 2 drivers who are easily up at the front of the pack. Gary Corley, he was also up at the front of the pack at one point. Luis Gonzalez Nunez, a car that you knew that was fast coming into this race, all having issues.
Yeah, as of right now, if we were to have a caution, the Lucky Dog driver would not get back on the lead lap. The first car that we have off the lead lap, Joe McAdory, is -2. So he would need 2 cautions to come out between now and the finish to get back into contention on the lead lap to pick up more spots. Did look back, Thaddeus McMurray right now is en route to having his best career finish in the Dark Horse Racing Series, besting a 7th place finish all the way back in the season opener at Pocono. Right now he is in P6.
I've noticed in the past few laps that AJ Hobson's been running just barely faster laps than Eric Peterson, and I can't tell if that's the result of maybe some damage or if it could be the result of just Eric Peterson just taking a little bit easy and AJ Hobson just taking a little bit more dangerously, just trying to catch up.
Well, I mean, if we go on board here with AJ Hobson, I mean, he's got pretty clean racetrack in front of him. Eric Peterson, he's got lap cars that he's been around for these last few laps. Also interesting here as we sneak a look on board with AJ Hobson. He's up in 6th gear. Wonder what that would be for.
Maybe some sneaky fuel mileage late in the race.
Maybe. I mean, he came to pit road on the same lap as AJ Hobson, the last round of green flag pit stops. I don't know if there's something to be gained there if you come to pit road a lap or two later than the race leader.
I mean, just thinking, those 1 or 2 laps, kind of thinking of the fuel range. I mean, I could see you making one stop and hopefully making it to the end of the race on fuel, but it's very unlikely. And as I see kind of Craig Forsyth continue to close in, I can tell who's kind of trying maybe to save and who definitely is not saving.
The best battle on track right now for position is actually going on between a couple of lap machines. Charles Teed, Eric Schaus, both 2 laps down. This is for the 8th position. Most of the drivers on the lead lap have a second or more between them for position. There's about a second from Hobson back to Coates, another second from Coates back to Forsyth. Coates keeps on just almost breaking into the sub-second gap between himself and Hobson, but it seems like as soon as he gains those few 100s, he loses it the following lap. So everybody, for the most part, up inside the top 5, top 6, pretty stationary in terms of lap times, in terms of their track position. Schaus nearly almost got the wall there off of turn 4. So now it's basically, I think, for those drivers just setting themselves up for that final trip to pit road. As, man, I don't know if Schaus just had a good run or if Teed had to bail out of the throttle, but the two nearly made contact there off the second corner.
I'm starting to see that Eric Peterson looks like he's just kind of slowing down, not really having that great of luck. Obviously, we have kind of lap cars around him, but I don't think that's the full story. I think there's something maybe wrong with that car.
That damage that maybe we're not able to see, is it maybe in some way there and affecting the speed on this 36?
Now, granted, I'm willing to admit, it could just be left front damage, and if you're looking at an example for left front damage, look no further than Joe McAdory. Has that little bit of damage on the left front, that wings pushed up, but it doesn't seem to be affecting him that much in corners, where he seems to still be able to keep a lot of speed and roll through the corners, not in the same fashion that we were seeing with the right side pod damage.
I was wondering if maybe his lap times were slower, maybe he was in 6th gear trying to save some fuel, but you can see he is firmly in 5th gear and starting to close in on some more traffic there, about a corner and a half ahead. But you can even see there with the onboard, these drivers here tonight, nighttime conditions. We've already seen what cold tires can do with the slick conditions leaving pit road, and you can kind of see even with those front tires, a little bit of counter steer there off the corners, trying to get those worn rear tires to grip, especially off of turn 4.
The best move is just be smooth. You don't need to kind of overrun the car. You don't need to aggressively shove it into the corner. Just slowly but surely, trust me, you'll win the race.
It's Joe McAdory again in the 312, is going to go another lap down. He'll now be -3. You got Teed and Schaus -2, McAdory -3, 4 laps down apiece for Corley and Lazon, and then Joseph Morales currently is 5 laps down, last car running in the 12th position. I believe that nobody else outside of the drivers we've already documented, with now the exception of Joseph Morales, they have not used their fast repair, still have that intact. And I kind of feel that this upcoming pit stop is going to tell us the story of whether or not there is damage affecting potentially the speed of this 36. If we end up seeing the fast repair column go to 1 of 1, I think that'll give us an idea that he's been fighting something in terms of the handling, maybe even the downforce and the aero of this machine for this 50-lap stint.
It doesn't look extremely like it's been affected, but just it's noticeable that he doesn't seem like on as quick as pace as he was before. Now, it also could be a little bit of difference between, let me think, maybe just a type of, maybe Eric Schaus was kind of just pushing him forward, kind of using that draft, where 2 cars, if you're around the similar speed, were able to kind of just leapfrog each other. That could be a reason.
We're about 5-ish laps away from when these drivers will make their final trip to pit road, and I'm certain with what we saw there last time all these drivers were on pit lane, the big thing that's got to be sticking in these drivers' minds now is make sure you get off pit road safely, because it bit a trio of drivers and subsequently took Eric Schaus out of the running for this race win after he had been running pretty much in the lead or second place for the first half of the race.
Kind of watching here, just seeing who's going to make really the first move to get the pit road. I'm seeing really the biggest issue that some of these leaders are having right now is just navigating lap traffic. AJ Hobson hit the wall. A little bit of right side damage. Now he's going to be falling. And
Hobson is...
he got it trying to avoid Gary Corley. And honestly, he kind of paid the price for that one. Looks like he's going to pit this time.
Yep.
Honestly, a smart move trying to pit this time. Almost coming from the Craig Forsyth.
Gosh!
Caution's
and a
out.
caution.
Charles Teed.
That is McMurray.
Ooh, man, if I was Eric Peterson almost got leveled, but that is McMurray.
That is over in turns 1 and 2, right in the center of 1 and 2. McMurray, who is the last car on the lead lap at the time. Caution comes out for the first time tonight, right within the window of these drivers being able to make it the rest of the way on fuel. Let's go
Man,
back and see what happened.
If you're Eric Peterson, you're saying, man, I don't want to have to fight Craig Forsyth. I don't want to have to fight the rest of these guys. If you're someone like Jeff Heisong or AJ Hobson, you're jumping up and down. You're the happiest person on earth.
Did that as McMurray run out of fuel?
No, it really looks like, I think maybe Charles Teed kind of sent it a little bit, but I think Teed may have just sent it a little bit hot into the corner, not realizing that. I think really the big difference, if you're looking at Thaddeus McMurray and you're looking at Charles Teed had a perfectly good right side pod and right aero fin. While if you're looking at Thaddeus McMurray, that side pod has a little bit of that right side damage and he's going a little bit slower pace. So would not surprise me.
And I'll tell you what was a little bit scary there was the fact that after the contact, the 37 started migrating back down the racetrack, and this is on board with your race leader, Eric Peterson. Watch this going through 1 and 2. All of a sudden, you see the 37 up there, and he starts coming down the racetrack. One of those life flashing in front of your eyes moments there for the guy that's dominated so far tonight.
And I think that's kind of one of those risky moments where you just don't like to think about. That's one of those moments you just kind of black out in your head and you don't hope to remember, but again, it could have gone 10 times worse.
So, not certain who the lucky dog would be. I believe that Teed was in line to be the free pass car, but I'm not certain if he's going to be the one to get it or if Eric Schaus is going to be the one to get it. We'll try and update on that once we end up getting that information. Looks like Gary Corley's going to stay out and take a wave around, get one of his 6 laps back. Actually, correction, one of his 7 laps back. It would put him to -6. He had an unscheduled stop just moments before that caution came out, so he should theoretically be able to maybe make it the rest of the way, depending on what he saves here under this caution. And yeah, this is a full reset now for these drivers. 5 drivers will be on the lead lap when we go back green, and what a break for AJ Hobson. Kit was coming to pit road, the caution comes out, he was on pit road, I believe, when the yellow flag waved, so he was able to take his service. Either that or he passed through pit road, didn't take service, and remained on the lead lap. So Peterson, Coates, Forsyth, Heisong, and Hobson here to battle it out in a less than 50 lap sprint, if you will.
That's it. This is one of those moments where I kind of look at Eric Peterson. Eric Peterson wasn't really wowing me on the short runs, but on the long runs, that's where his dominance really come into play. I'm kind of wondering about these short runs. Obviously, Eric Peterson's going to have the control of the restart here. Being able to kind of control when you go on this restart, that's going to be very important. But Alec Coates is the only thing that separates Craig Forsyth from Eric Peterson, and Forsyth has been on a tear all night.
Craig Forsyth looking for what would be his 4th win on the season. Right now he and Rick Ravon gridlocked at 3 wins apiece. Of course, for Alec Coates, he's trying to better his runner-up finish in the season opener at Pocono. And for Eric Peterson, he is looking for his first trip to victory lane. Only 2 finishes inside of the top 5 prior to tonight. And we had that big question mark there, Matt, about whether or not there was damage on the 36 and if he might maybe utilize the faster pair when he came to pit road to fix it. There's still a 0 of 1 on the faster pair section of the 36 column on the telemetry. So apparently did not sustain any damage, or at least felt that it wasn't worth taking a faster pair over. So be interesting to follow that storyline here for the remainder of this race. But you talk about the fact that he is the control car now. that is going to be important in the fact that we ended up seeing if he was able to get 3, 4, 5 car lengths over Eric Schaus in the early going, Schaus was never able to get back to him. Kind of feels like the same situation here. If he can get that big enough gap, then more than likely he might be able to keep Coates, Forsyth, Hysong, and company at bay.
See, this is one of the most tricky moments where I think Peterson was really banking on having Forsyth still have to fight through all that traffic and come from 4 seconds back. This is kind of a nightmare scenario, but I mean, this is where you make your money. I mean, you've got to prove that you can outrun all these guys, and this is really where it's make or break.
45 laps to go here tonight at the Iowa Speedway. Peterson mashes the gas, opens up a little bit of distance between himself and Alec Coase, who in turns opens up about 3-4 car lengths back to Craig Forsyth. Peterson trying to scamper away down the back straightaway.
It looks like he does just that, but that really puts Alec Coates in contention here to really start battling out, seeing if he can kind of take the fight straight to Eric Peterson.
Jumping up to the top, maybe trying to see if he can arc the corner and exit low, continuing to try and slice and dice, figure out where he can create a run, and that's just going to bring Forsyth and Jeff Hysong into this battle. Suddenly, what's been a solo here tonight has turned into a quartet, closing in on 40 laps to go, and we can confirm Eric Schaus did get the free pass under that caution. He is the only car 1 lap down, so should we get another yellow, he could be back in contention for this win as Coates. Man, that was a very close move there, front wing to back gearbox, but he's going to make it work. Edges ahead off of turn 2. Peterson again back on the top.
Honestly, my main advice to Peterson right now, don't burn up your stuff. You've been great on the long runs. Don't burn it up just because Alec Coates is trying to force you. That's it. Right now, let Coates burn up his stuff, trying to get away from you, and then just slowly start driving back.
Boy, nice run there off of turn 2 on the high side for Eric Peterson, but the drive in on the inside is going to give Coates the advantage out of 3 and 4. Trying to slice and dice, trying to not allow the 36 to get any slipstream, any sort of run. And really, I mean, how can you generate a run on these very short straightaways? It kind of feels like if you're going to make this pass, you've got to set it up in the corners and then maybe execute it on exit.
Yeah, really what you need to do is in the middle or really exit of the corner, you need to get a little bit of that draft. So when you're getting off that corner, you can start launching forward. And at that point, when you're getting off the corner, you're accelerating faster than the guy in front of you. And you can kind of just pick your lane at that point. And as long as he doesn't have a car there, it's fair game.
AJ Hobson's about 2+ seconds behind this top 4. So for the time being, it is Coates, Peterson, Forsyth, and Hysong to settle this thing out. For 3 of these drivers, they're looking for their first win on the season. For Forsyth, he's looking for win number 4.
And realistically, there's a lot at risk for Forsyth here. Right now, it's the greatest version of risk versus reward. The risk is, hey, he ends up wrecking out of his race, and the one race that Rick Ravon wasn't in, he risked losing all of those points that he could have gained. But on the other side, hey, a win here could be really the nail in the coffin for Rick Ravon. So obviously, he's trying to weigh it out as this is an acceptable risk. But only time will tell.
You talk about the risk versus reward as well as Coates almost came down across the front wing of Craig Forsyth.
And that's
but out of
what makes it so dangerous where Alec Coates, he's only going for a win. He is willing to block you all the way to the bottom of the wall. Forsyth has a lot more to lose here, and Alec Coates is kind of taking advantage of it.
Well, bear in mind, as Peterson gets really tight through the center of 3 and 4, bear in mind that the 10, the 36, the 18, they've still got their faster pair. They can make these risky moves because they've still got a mulligan to work with. Forsyth does not have that luxury.
I think that's really what everyone's trying to use against him, knowing that, hey, Forsyth has to be careful here because one wrong slip up, that could easily take him out of his race.
With this battling up inside of the top 4, all of a sudden, that has brought AJ Hobson back into the mix. What was 2 seconds has now been closed up to about 1.2 seconds and continuing to decrease. There you see him about maybe 4 car lengths off the back of Jeff Hysong for that 4th position as things have settled down a little bit here. Coates leading by 3 car lengths back to Craig Forsyth as they start to approach traffic.
I think really the big thing is, the big difference between Eric Peterson and Alec Coates right now is the same thing what we saw in New Hampshire, where Or actually, was it New Hampshire? No, it was Milwaukee. The same thing we saw in Milwaukee with Rick Ravon leaving so much of that race, and then later in the race, finally being encountered with draft for the first. Oh, car on the wall hard in the back straightaway.
Eric Schaus in the 72 as it comes to rest down on the inside of the racetrack. Surprisingly, no caution going to fly as Schaus, who would have gotten back in the lead lap if a caution came out, very likely could have been the caution, but again, no yellow waving as he limps that bright green number 72 back to pit road.
Looks like he was battling side by side with Thaddeus McMurray. Just a little bit of contact ended up sending him spinning out of turn 2. And as he tried to save it, just kind of lawn darted straight into the wall, and that's going to end his night.
And that was a battle, I do believe, for what would have been the lucky dog position. Thaddeus McMurray got put a lap down, so Schaus was trying to be the first car one lap down to be in the lucky dog spot. He is now headed for pit road, so what was looking like was going to be such a great night for driver 72, all of a sudden has gone downhill and downhill in a hurry, and Craig Forsyth just completed the pass around Alec Coates. He is out in front. It took him almost 175 laps to do so, but up in the lead when it matters the most in the closing stages.
Look at Jeff Highsong here. He's slowly started to work his way through the field. He's starting to chase down Forsyth.
Highsong now to the third spot, trying to now see if he can catch Alec Coates for second place as Forsyth continues to start to open up a little bit of daylight. That last time by, he was the only driver of the top 4 that ran in the 16.8s, but on the flip side, this time by, he's the only driver that ran a 16.9. The others behind him ran low 16.8s.
I'm kind of watching this here, and I'm wondering when Alec Coates' tires are really going to fall off here and when we're really going to see the effects. I wonder if the effects are actually also setting into Eric Peterson, too, since he was running them pretty aggressively for a few laps.
Might have to kind of get those tires to cool down as we saw some really aggressive racing in the early going between Peterson and Coates. Jeff Highsong starting to close in on Coates for that second position. And these drivers, we know they are good to make it the rest of the way on fuel, all the way to the rest of the scheduled distance. So basically now you've got what you've got. It's about managing the tires, managing the gap, and maintaining your position.
Just kind of looking, everyone's kind of in that small little area within 1 second of each other. And I think, I don't know who's possibly trying to hold, who's holding them and who's showing them.
Coates with a nice run there through 3 and 4. Closes the gap back up about a car length and a half. He's running the lower line here through 1 and 2, trying to get the clean air to the nose, and it appears to be working. So, yeah, might have actually just kind of sat back, let those tires cool down a little bit. Ooh, got really tight there off of 4, but maybe giving it an opportunity for those tires to cool down and wind that rubber band up again. But as soon as he gets about half a car length behind Craig Forsyth, that's when the aero tightness seems to kick in and he loses all that ground that he gained.
Yeah, realistically, it's kind of one of those, the tires are kind of getting worn, plus you're in the draft of another car, so it's kind of affecting and unsettling that front end just a little bit and causing your car just to plow a little bit. That's what we're also seeing with Jeff Highsong and Eric Peterson kind of falling off the field here a little bit. I think it's just a little bit of aero push, just kind of driving them up the hill and not having as sharp as an effect as it would in Craig Forsyth.
Craig Forsyth has had an exemplary year. He has finished inside of the top 5, 8 of the 9 starts that he had this season. The only blemish on that top 5 record was back in the season opener at Pocono, when he ended up finishing outside the top 10 in a 3-wide battle in the closing stages in that race. As AJ Hobson, I just noticed, something amiss on the 63. I don't know if he had an incident or just brought it to pit road, but he just gave up the 6th position to Charles Teed, and it looks like he's in danger of losing more spots here in the closing stages.
Realistically, what looks like it happened is AJ Hobson brushed the wall out of 4, and instead of, he doesn't have that fast repair anymore, and he just didn't want to stick around and fix it, just ended up calling it a day.
15 laps to go with Forsyth hitting the start-finish line. We've heard from Craig Forsyth, the shorter racetracks, not necessarily his favorite. He loves going to the high-speed, bigger racetracks. We know that he's obviously got Indianapolis circled on his calendar, but here tonight, really, if you think about it, I think we could call this a patient race. for Craig Forsyth. Spent most of this race running back around the 6th, 7th position, had early troubles brushing the outside wall off of turn 4, and then just kind of utilized the green flag pit stops to pick up a spot or two here and there. The caution comes out, he finds himself up inside of the top 3, top 4 for that restart, and then just seemed to all of a sudden turn it up to 11, takes the race lead and is running away with it right now. Now has traffic between himself and Coates, as Coates currently a half a second off of race leader Craig Forsyth.
And I'm just kind of looking back in the pack here and just, let's say, I'm just thinking about some of the nights for some of these guys where, yeah, Alec Coates, he may not come away with the victory unless something really changes or really a big mistake happens. But hey, a P2 is not very bad of a way to kind of salvage your season. Jeff Hysong is really the one with the most to gain and most to lose here. He does gain a little bit on Rick Ravon. Obviously, if it were to finish as it does right now, it would be it'd be third place, which definitely is great, but kind of lies in the big issue of you're gaining on Rick Ravon, but you're not gaining on Craig Forsyth, which inherently is an issue. And then obviously Eric Peterson, hey, it may not be what you want, but it's a good finish.
Definitely doesn't necessarily reflect how strong a race car he had in the first 3 quarters of this race, but still a solid outing for him. Thaddeus McMurray right now is in the 5th position, and he is the only car 1 lap down.
Woo.
He is still en route for his best finish of his career. And we ended up just having a moment. I think, did Charles Teed get the wall? Yeah, he did. He's slow. I was going to mention the fact that Teed was in the 6th position. Oh, gracious, Corley there. The move on the back straightaway, but Teed actually came to pit road in the 5. So maybe he might have actually taken a wave around there on that last restart and could not make it on fuel, but he was at the moment going to finish in the 6th position, which was going to be a far cry better than where he was running the early going after getting to the wall. He was mired outside of the top 10. He's now going to drop down to 7th 4 laps down. Again, still going to gain more points than he would have if this had only been a, 10, 15 lap race.
And realistically, the big issue in this, obviously, we've taken the wave around. It's a chance you do get back on the lead lap, but you do have a big risk versus big reward where if it does get a quick caution, hey, you got your lap back, just go down pit road, fill back up, and hey, you're back in this. Where if it doesn't, I mean, it does get you in a bigger hole than you probably were originally, but unfortunately, sometimes those are risks that we have to take.
You know, I was wondering, I went back to check. This is going to, if it finishes the way it's currently running, this is going to be Alec Coates' 3rd time as bridesmaid this season. Mentioned he finished 2nd at Pocono. He also, a couple of weeks ago, finished 2nd at Kansas. And now, running in the tire tracks of Craig Forsyth, his 3rd runner-up finish on the season. I mean, at some point, does that get to a driver of, man, I'm just so close. I just can't seem to get that one car, that one position.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where if you're Jeff Hysong right now, I mean, you're trying your best to catch up to Alec Coates, but it's kind of one of those too little too lates. The same thing for Alec Coates. I mean, you're just trying to track down Craig Forsyth to the best of your ability, but man, that gap just stays the same.
White flag displayed this time by for driver 27, Craig Forsyth, looking for his 4th victory on the season. He's looking to extend his points lead heading into Gateway next week. Makes his way through 3 and 4 cleanly. He'll see the checkered flag. Craig Forsyth wins tonight at Iowa.
Like I said, this was the perfect night for him where he really needed to come out and perform. He needed a win to really kind of take full advantage of Rick Ravon not being here and full on. He did just that, where this is really going to put Ravon in a kind of a box where he has to perform these next 2 weeks.
Craig Forsyth's getting very good at celebrating here this season. 4th time he's going to be going to victory lane as he coasts it up to the start-finish line here on the front straightaway. He's going to come to a stop right there on the start-finish line down on the oval, the short track oval here on the front stretch at the Iowa Speedway. We'll be talking with him in just a few moments, as well as the other podium finishers, Alec Coates and Jeff Hysong. But let's take a look at the finishing results from this evening's event, and a lot of different storylines here tonight, different drivers with different adventures, but I guess you could say the top four there, really your survivors here tonight, as Iowa Speedway took no prisoners.
Yeah, and I'm kind of I keep touching on this point, but Jeff Hysong is really surprising. I mean, looking at his previous results, he had two fourth place finishes consecutively, and this will be his third place finish in a row. I mean, eventually one of these days that fortune has to change, and you're going to end up getting second. You're going to end up getting first, but obviously it's painful to kind of sit here and kind of lose those opportunities.
Got a couple more opportunities here this season. Gateway next week, Motegi in a few weeks, and then of course you've got that regular season finale at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The big one. We kind of saved the big race for the very end with a championship hanging in the balance. How about Thaddeus McMurray there in fifth and Joe McAdory? I mean, for a lot of these drivers, they lost the laps either getting into the wall, having to make unscheduled pit stops, or maybe just a little bit conservative on pit road, going multiple laps down with it being a short track. But you've got McAdory 3 laps down and still brings it home in the sixth position. Charles Teed still bringing it home in seventh. This kind of goes back to the old moniker of never give up because, yeah, you made a mistake in the early going, but there's still a whole bunch of race still to go. There's still a lot of opportunity that others will make a mistake and you've got a chance to capitalize. So the never give up attitude by a number of these drivers, even Joseph Morales there in eighth, I think he and Teed, they were at one time scheduled to get 11th and 12th place points, and they're up inside of the top 10. Glenn Luzon, he's ninth, and he was going to be outside the top 10. You're going to get more points just for sticking it out than if you had called it quits when you had the early issues.
And it's just any little bit helps. Just being able to get any points is realistically better than last place points, better than no points. Even if Rick Ravon was just able to start the race tonight, that would be so much bigger than just being, hey, not getting penny points at all.
And as we move to the second page here, you see these are the drivers that did not reach the conclusion. AJ Hobson, who spent a good portion of this race up inside of the top five, actually was inside the top three in the early going. Eric Schaus ran second for a good portion of this race, and he had his issue off of turn two, didn't bring out a caution. He subsequently finishes in 12th. Jason Hand, he called it an early night, and Luis Gonzalez Nunez. And if we're looking at drivers that were trying to keep themselves in the conversation for the championship, big hit tonight for driver 14. He's got a lot of work to do here in these final 3 races.
Yeah, and this is going to be kind of an uphill battle for him. I don't want to say it's too little too late, but I mean, we've kind of documented over the last few races. I mean, you have to be no mistakes. Even if you do get like let's say a fifth or sixth place finish, it doesn't have to be amazing, but you just have to be consistent. Make sure you're constantly finishing these races. Luis Gonzalez Nunez has had good runs, but he just has not had that consistency.
And the big issue, too, we've talked about it for the last couple of weeks, is Forsyth, Ravon, Highsong, Nunez. They always seem to find each other in the same area of the racetrack, the same area of the field. So while you're running up there, having a good run inside of the top three, top five, the rest of your competition is right there with you too. So not a whole lot of opportunity to be able to gain a big chunk of points, which at this point in time is definitely what Nunez needs to do, and also in the case of Jeff Hysong needs to have a big chunk of points. Of course, we'll have a big field. Indianapolis is double points race, so still anything can happen, but going to be a lot of fun to watch what happens down this home stretch. Let's go down trackside and see if we can talk with a few of our podium finishers, and let's see, why don't we kick things off with the guy that brings it home, as you said, in his third straight third place finish, and that is the driver, the number 18, Jeff Hysong. Hey Jeff, it's Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yeah, how you guys doing?
I'll tell you what a time to get momentum here with just a handful of races left on the season. You bring it home on the podium once again here tonight. We saw a lot of drivers, though, really struggle with their race cars, seemed to really struggle. I don't know if it was the tire heat, it was the aero issue, but it seemed like that outside wall was sucking a lot of the top contenders in. Your car remained relatively clean here tonight. You kept it all in one piece. What were some of the keys to making sure that happened?
For the most part, taking care of the tires there, you could burn them up pretty quickly, and then you'd be on the back foot for the rest of the run, which I did in the last run, which I'm kind of kicking myself for. I had nothing for Alec and Craig there at the end, but for the most part throughout the race, I was doing a good job on that, but at the end there, it was just tough.
So, Jeff, I mean, you've been one of my favorite to watch out of these last few weeks, just trying to claw back points. It's not that too little too late, but obviously, you did gain a huge amount of points on Rick Ravon. Looks like you're only 37 points behind, but you did lose ground to Craig Forsyth at 94. I mean, how much does this factor in, and what do you have to do the next few weeks to make sure you're in the conversation when we get to Indianapolis?
Just got to keep being consistent, keep the car out of trouble, and then yeah, Craig's some type of magician getting that car back up front, because I thought for sure after he hit the wall, it was going to be a positive points day in that aspect, and he did his thing and got the car back up there.
Obviously eyeing Indianapolis, but we've got Gateway and Twin Ring Motegi coming up. Between those two tracks, what's the place you're specifically looking at as the place to be able to, again, have these consistent runs? Or is there one of those two tracks that you're going to be putting a little bit more effort into that you kind of have a question mark on how you perform?
I like both of the tracks. They're actually quite similar in the way that they race. A little bit different, but similar. So I'm excited for the next 2 weeks, and then Indy will be the big challenge, just based on pace there.
Another solid outing for you here tonight. Congratulations on another podium finish here. 3 straight weeks that we've seen you bring it home on the podium, and the latest one here tonight at Iowa. Jeff, before we let you go, we'll give you the opportunity to thank some sponsors and do some shout-outs.
Thanks to you guys for your great coverage. Thanks to the family for supporting me and letting me do this. Shout out to my son for all the hard work he's doing right now. And then shout out to Craig on a hell of a drive, and Alec on the great podium.
As Jeff Heisong, third place here tonight under the lights at the Iowa Speedway. He'll look to carry this momentum into Gateway next week. Congratulations on another solid outing, Jeff.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
See if we can get our second place finisher here tonight, Alec Coates. Alec, it's Matt Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
How's it going, fellas?
Man, I'll tell you what, gotta be getting tired of bringing it home second place. Third time this season that you've brought it home in the runner-up position. Had a shot there at the end, saw a great four-way battle between yourself, Forsyth, Heisong, and Peterson. Was it just a matter of not enough grip in those tires to be able to reel in the 27?
Yeah, that's kind of what it boiled down to. It was kind of my own mistake. I got to the lead, I took the bottom away, and then after about 10, 15 laps, you needed to move up a groove and try to take the middle away, because that was actually the faster way around it. And Craig just pretty much read it like a book, and it was pretty easy for him to get by me. And at that point, I was kind of hosed. You can't really do much if you don't do it early in the run. So he played it right, and I just finished runner-up to him again, I guess.
So, unlike Seth, I'm a little less fun. So, this is really just kind of a psychological question at the end of it, where, I mean, you have had multiple runner-up finishes this season, and I know from personal experience that takes a toll. And, I mean, just going forward, I mean, how does this continue to motivate you, or does it kind of put a damper on how you race further?
No, I wouldn't say it dampers. I mean, I didn't run a single practice lap. I started in the back and I drove it to second. So, I mean, you got to take the positives away from it. I'm just out here having a good time with all these guys and trying to put good results in when I have the time to come race. So, yeah, I mean, I do want to get that win. I feel like I'm quick enough to do so, but I'm not really putting the lap times in and everything before the sessions simply because I just got a lot going on. So, definitely got to take the positives out of it, even though I'd like to be one step higher.
Yeah, you talk about working your way through the field from the back of the pack. Second place run tonight, but the thing that stands out the most to me as I look at our telemetry, plus 11 from your 13th starting position. We saw here tonight drivers battling for position, and it seemed like a couple of passes were able to be made, but especially as the run went on, it was very difficult to make passes with that tire heat. How difficult was it for you starting that far back to be patient and work your way up as you were able to? Especially, it seemed that you were able to gain 1 or 2 spots on those green flag pit stop rounds, those first 2 round of green flag pit stops. I mean, how difficult is it as a driver to kind of make sure you don't overstep that mark, don't overstep those boundaries, and keep the car consistent on a long green flag run like we had?
Yeah, it was tough. You had to make, like I said, you had to go early if you were gonna try to make some moves. And then, like you said, the pit stops were where you had to really make your time. I think that's something that Craig is just exceptionally good at, and where he gets us every week. I was pretty solid tonight. It was so treacherous that this is one of those tracks that you're better off taking it easy and not completely ending your night versus trying to make up a few seconds here and there. So actually, off of off the pit road on the first stop, I almost ate the wall. I had a crazy save and just kind of put my head back down and went back to it. So yeah, it was nice to have good green flag stops for myself. That I usually mess those up, so that was good.
Well, Alec, a great performance for you here tonight. Again, as mentioned, the driver that picked up the most spots here tonight. You bring it home with another solid second place finish here this evening. Congratulations on that. Before we let you go, we'll give you the opportunity to do some thank you sponsors and shout outs.
Yeah, just the usual guys. I appreciate you guys always putting the sweet broadcast on, and everybody at this league that runs a pretty fun league on Sunday nights. Gives me something to do, and then TJ at Thaddy Max Designs for always making me look good. And hey, every time I show up so far, I think I've beaten Teed, and that's my goal. So we're gonna keep rolling with it.
That's Alec Coates. He's your runner-up finisher here tonight at the Iowa Speedway. Congratulations once again. Best of luck here in the upcoming races. Maybe we'll see you get that one position you've been lacking in the last few races. Maybe see you in victory lane.
Thanks, guys.
And let's go down to victory lane. Fourth win on the year for driver number 27, Craig Forsyth. Hey, Craig, it's Matt and Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
You betcha, guys. How you doing tonight?
Man, I'll tell you what, if we took a story and wrote it about your race here tonight, I think we'd have a #1 bestseller. Because let's go through this. You ended up starting up towards the front in the 5th position. You get the wall just on the eve of that first round of green flag pit stop. So you get the opportunity to come down, take on a faster pair. You're running in 7th position. After the second cycle of pit stops, you're up in the top 5. We end up seeing that final round of green flag pit stops coming up. You're challenging for a spot up inside of the top 3. Caution comes out, and the landscape completely changes. You're up at the front. You're driving away with this thing. I mean, did you, after you got the wall there in the early stages, did you think that this race was going to end like this with you in victory lane?
Oh, I mean, anything's possible, but let's be serious. I mean, I think I fell back to 8th or 9th. I think I was only, I don't know, 7 or 6 seconds from going a lap down. I knew I'd be able to save the lap, going a lap down by getting in. I had to keep going until the pit cycle opened up. But I mean, at that point, it's just like I need people to start screwing up on their pits, on their pit ins or pit outs. And I had a couple guys. I think both times I did the first and second pit. Whatever car was in front of me ended up spinning out and hitting the inside wall. So was able to gain some positions that way. And then it was just go put down fast laps, go. Don't bother conserving the tires for the end in those ones because you needed to make up the track position. And then, I got to the end of, I caught up. I couldn't believe I was up to, was it 4th or, I think 4th at that point behind Alec. And I couldn't, by that point, I'd burned the tires off again. But, I was able to get right up behind him. And it's like, okay, I think I can pass him, pit in, pit out, pretty sure. Just getting ready to do that. And then the caution happened. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, this changes everything. So, I feel bad for Eric there because he'd basically run away with that race. But, no, good on my pit crew. They were when I hit that wall, I was just stupid. Got dirty air. Got dirty air. Wasn't being attentive enough, and just brushed the wall enough to affect the car. But they were able to, thankfully, quickly fix it up and get me going again. But my goodness,
So let me go a little bit bigger picture racing here. Obviously, Rick Ravon was not here, which is very good for you, very bad for him. It's very good for you in the fact that currently you now have a 57-point lead on Rick Ravon going into the final, really 3 events of the season. But with Rick Ravon coming back, and there is a possibility for Rex and also that double points race at the end of the season, I mean, how relaxed are you going forward?
oh, you can't be relaxed with these guys. They're too good. I mean, Rick's too good. Jeff is too good. LGN's too good. Eric is still fighting for his first win. Any of these guys can win the race. I mean, it's any of these races, and all it's going to take is one wreck that comes at the wrong time that you can't make up the positions that you lose because of the wreck, and suddenly the entire landscape changes. So you've got to be on it for these next 3 races and make sure that we're getting good points in all 3 races and not making any bad decisions.
Now, one area of the racetrack that we really didn't highlight that much here post race, but it did play a huge factor into a couple of our storylines and took out one of the contenders for the win here tonight as well, was exiting pit road. We ended up seeing a number of drivers. Morales, Schaus got taken out with the damage he sustained from the spin. We even saw Eric Peterson have a spin there as well. Was that something that you drivers were aware of was going to happen that in testing or in practice, or was that something that seemed to take everybody by surprise that that rear grip wasn't there leaving pit road?
I'd done probably 15 practice pit entries on older tires, so I'd known what I needed to do coming in, and I knew that it was dicey getting out. You needed to be careful getting on the power, so I wasn't surprised to see that some of the guys just if you weren't expecting it and you weren't light on the power, you need to sacrifice a bit of the desire for that quick pit out to make sure the car stays under you, so you can once you've straightened out and can see the blue line, you can put the power down.
We talked about the fact that Alec Coates has finished second place a number of times here this season. Craig, you finished runner-up in the last two shorter racetracks here this year, Milwaukee and at New Hampshire, so able to get a victory here tonight at a short track at Iowa. Congratulations, well done. It's going to be a lot of fun. As you said, no let-up, so it'll be interesting to see your strategies heading into our upcoming tracks at Gateway, Motegi, and of course the finale at Indianapolis. We know you want to get back to celebrating, but before we do, we're handing the mic over for some victory lane. Thank you, sponsors, and shout-outs.
Well, I think the biggest thank you is to my wife. She it's our anniversary today, and she said, "Hey, let's go for anniversary brunch instead of dinner, so that you can have your race." And she let me do this race, and so that was that. Thank you to having an awesome wife, and I mean, thank you to the whole team, the whole 4D Racewear team. I mean, just a good bunch of guys, and I mean the whole Dark Horse crew. You saw we had I think 14 cars out tonight, so numbers are pushing back up, and it's good to see that the league is thriving and providing entertainment.
Well, happy anniversary. Congratulations on your victory here tonight, win number 4 on the season, and again, best of luck down the remaining stretch of this season.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Steph. Stay safe.
That's Craig Forsyth, your winner here tonight. So as you alluded to, Matt, the point standings right now, a decent gap for Craig Forsyth back to Rick Ravon. Jeff Heisong still mathematically in the hunt, but a lot of things have to happen here in these upcoming tracks. Gateway, Motegi, obviously we know with the double points at Indianapolis, so let's highlight those other two tracks that we're going to. Do they have the capability of shaking this up and getting Ravon and Heisong still further into this conversation?
Reasonably, Gateway is a very tough and technical track. Now, while it may not seem like that on the surface, that it's a simple oval, realistically, the turns are very complex. And also, if you get a little bit too low in those corners, maybe you get on the rumble strips just a little bit, the back end of the car will step out, and that could be the end of your night and multiple other drivers' nights. Same thing for Trimmer Motegi. You think it's got really a track that has multiple lanes. It is, but realistically, it's a very dominant bottom lane track that does have a lot of fuel mileage and strategy calls play into it. So definitely another one to watch out for.
Next week, we're going to be heading to Gateway, 1.25 mile racing for these drivers. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays its part into this championship battle down the home stretch. Hope you will join us for that. We'll then have an off week before these drivers will head to the penultimate race of the season at Twin Ring Motegi. Then they'll be heading to the Yard of Bricks, the season finale at Indianapolis. Next week at Gateway, our coverage will be Sunday night with the green flag flying at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you'll join us for that. We appreciate you joining us here tonight for this race from the Iowa Speedway. Matt, it was a pretty unpredictable race in many regards. A couple of things taking us by surprise, but Iowa Speedway last couple of seasons has really played its part in the outcome of the championship. Maybe doing the same here tonight. I appreciate you joining me up in the booth.
Always enjoy being here.
And again, thank you to everybody that tuned into our coverage here this evening. We'll see you guys next Sunday night as we continue on the sixth season of the Dark Horse Racing Series presented by Troy Lee Designs. Craig Forsyth, your winner here tonight at Iowa Speedway. For Matthew Rodriguez, I'm Seth Cole. We'll see you guys next week from Gateway as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of FRN, the Flat Out Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flat Out Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flat Out Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flat Out Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight.